Few artists have ever changed music the way Bob Dylan did. For more than 6 decades, his songs have echoed through generations, shaping popular culture, influencing countless musicians, and redefining what songwriting could be. His words challenged authority, captured the spirit of an era, and gave voice to millions searching for meaning in turbulent times. To many, Bob Dylan is a mystery. He has spent much of his life avoiding easy explanations. He rarely discusses his deepest emotions. He often leaves interviewers frustrated with cryptic answers and carefully guarded stories. While fans know the lyrics, the awards, and the legendary performances, the man behind the music has remained surprisingly difficult to understand. Yet behind every great artist lies a personal story. A story of dreams, struggles, triumphs, and heartbreak. And behind many of Bob Dylan's most unforgettable songs stood remarkable women whose presence helped shape both the man and the music. Some inspired his greatest lyrics. Some challenged his worldview. Some broke his heart. Others helped him discover parts of himself he never knew existed. But among all the women who entered Dylan's life throughout the decades, there has long been speculation that one left a mark unlike any other. A memory that lingered long after fame arrived, long after relationships ended, and long after the world had moved on. To understand that possibility, we must return to the beginning. Back before the Nobel Prize. Before the sold-out arenas. Before the legend. Back when Bob Dylan was simply a young man named Robert Zimmerman. Born in Duluth, Minnesota, and raised in the small mining town of Hibbing, Robert Zimmerman grew up fascinated by music. He absorbed rock and roll, country, blues, and folk traditions with an intensity that hinted at the artist he would become. But small-town life could never contain his ambitions. In 1961, he arrived in New York City with little money but enormous dreams. New York was where folk music was thriving. It was where his hero, Woody Guthrie, lived. More importantly, it was where Robert Zimmerman would begin transforming himself into Bob Dylan. The reinvention was dramatic. He changed not only his name but also his image, his voice, and his artistic identity. He immersed himself in Greenwich Village's vibrant folk scene, performing in coffeehouses and attracting attention with his unique songwriting style. As his reputation grew, another life-changing development occurred. He met a young woman named Suze Rotolo. Many Dylan historians believe this relationship became one of the most important chapters of his entire life. Rotolo was unlike many of the people Dylan had known before. She came from a politically active family. She was intelligent, socially aware, passionate about civil rights, and deeply engaged with the cultural movements shaping America during the early 1960s. At the time, Dylan was still developing his political consciousness. According to numerous biographers and accounts from people who knew them, Rotolo exposed him to books, ideas, and social issues that broadened his perspective dramatically. Their relationship became far more than a romance. It became an intellectual partnership. Together they explored art, politics, literature, and activism. Many observers believe her influence helped accelerate Dylan's evolution from a talented folk performer into a songwriter capable of capturing the anxieties and hopes of an entire generation. One of the most iconic images in music history reflects their connection. On the cover of Dylan's 1963 album The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, the young couple walks arm in arm through a cold New York street. The photograph appears casual and spontaneous. Yet decades later, it remains one of the most recognizable album covers ever created. For many fans, that image represents youthful love, artistic possibility, and a moment when Dylan's future seemed limitless. Their relationship also coincided with a remarkable creative explosion. During these years, Dylan wrote songs that established him as one of the most important voices in American music. While it is impossible to determine exactly which emotions inspired every lyric, many Dylan scholars have connected elements of songs such as Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, Boots of Spanish Leather, and other early works to experiences from the Rotolo relationship. The emotional complexity found in those songs suggests a young artist wrestling with love, distance, longing, and change. But success has a way of complicating even the strongest relationships. As Dylan's fame expanded, so did the pressures surrounding him. Suddenly, he was no longer simply a struggling musician in Greenwich Village. He was becoming a cultural phenomenon. Journalists followed him. Fans analyzed his every move. Political groups claimed him as their spokesman. The demands became overwhelming. At the same time, Rotolo pursued her own interests and ambitions. Periods of separation created tension. Different expectations emerged. The relationship that had once seemed so natural began facing challenges neither of them could fully control. When the romance eventually ended, the emotional impact appeared significant. Friends and observers noted that Dylan seemed deeply affected by the breakup. The loss occurred during a period when his career was accelerating at extraordinary speed, creating a strange contrast between public success and private disappointment. And yet, life moved forward. As the 1960s progressed, Dylan's world expanded rapidly. His growing fame brought him into contact with actresses, artists, musicians, and intellectuals from around the globe. Women were increasingly drawn to the mysterious songwriter whose lyrics seemed capable of expressing emotions others could barely articulate. Various relationships and rumored romances emerged during this era. Some lasted only briefly. Others developed into meaningful friendships or creative partnerships. But the very fame that attracted people to Dylan also created barriers. Privacy became scarce. Trust became more complicated. The pressures of celebrity often collided with the realities of maintaining personal relationships. Meanwhile, Dylan himself was changing. The earnest young folk singer who had arrived in New York was evolving into something much larger and much harder to understand. As his music became more experimental and his public image more elusive, the emotional landscape of his personal life grew increasingly complex. The idealistic romance of his early years was fading into memory. Ahead lay marriage, children, heartbreak, creative reinvention, and some of the most emotionally turbulent relationships of his life. By the mid-1960s, Bob Dylan had become one of the most influential artists in the world. His songs were no longer simply folk anthems. They had become cultural landmarks. Crowds followed his every move. Reporters searched endlessly for clues about the man behind the lyrics. Yet as his public profile grew larger, Dylan increasingly sought something many celebrities struggle to find: a private life. That search would lead him to a woman named Sara Dylan. Their meeting occurred during one of the most transformative periods of Dylan's career. Sara was intelligent, independent, and remarkably different from the people constantly surrounding the young superstar. While many were captivated by Dylan's fame, Sara seemed largely uninterested in the celebrity phenomenon that followed him everywhere. Perhaps that was part of her appeal. For a man living under intense public scrutiny, Sara offered a sense of stability and normalcy. In November 1965, the couple married in a quiet ceremony that surprised much of the public. Many fans didn't even know Dylan was seriously involved with anyone. Almost immediately, Sara became one of the central figures in Dylan's life. Together they built a family and welcomed children into the world. For a period, Dylan appeared determined to step away from the chaos of fame and embrace domestic life. Following his famous motorcycle accident in 1966, he retreated from the spotlight for an extended period, spending more time focused on family than celebrity. To outside observers, it seemed like the perfect transition. The rebellious poet had found a home. The restless artist had found peace. And the mysterious songwriter had found the woman who might anchor him for the rest of his life. Many of Dylan's admirers viewed Sara as his great love story. In later years, songs such as Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands would become closely associated with her. The song's sweeping admiration and emotional depth suggested a profound connection between artist and muse. For a time, their relationship appeared destined for greatness. But marriages are rarely as simple as they appear from the outside. Behind the scenes, pressures accumulated. Dylan remained one of the world's most famous musicians. Touring, recording, and public expectations constantly pulled him away from family life. At the same time, maintaining privacy became increasingly difficult. Like many couples, they faced challenges that outsiders could only partially understand. Over the years, tensions reportedly developed. The demands of fame, personal differences, and emotional distance gradually took their toll. By the 1970s, cracks in the relationship were becoming harder to ignore. Friends and biographers have described this period as one of growing strain and uncertainty. Eventually, the marriage began unraveling. The emotional consequences would become some of the most discussed aspects of Dylan's personal and artistic history. Few albums have generated as much debate in this regard as Blood on the Tracks. Released in 1975, the record is widely considered one of Dylan's greatest achievements. Filled with themes of loss, regret, longing, and emotional reflection, It struck listeners with unusual intimacy. Songs such as Tangled Up in Blue, You're a Big Girl Now, and If You See Her, Say Hello, seem to reveal a man wrestling with the collapse of an important relationship. Dylan himself often resisted direct autobiographical interpretations of his work. He repeatedly cautioned listeners against assuming his songs were literal accounts of his personal life. Nevertheless, many critics, fans, and biographers have viewed Blood on the Tracks as deeply connected to the emotional turmoil surrounding his marriage. Whether every lyric reflected reality or artistic imagination, the album carried an emotional honesty that resonated powerfully with audiences. The marriage ultimately ended in divorce in 1977. For many observers, it marked one of the most painful chapters of Dylan's life. The relationship that had once seemed capable of providing lasting stability had become another source of heartbreak. Yet Sara was far from the only important woman in Dylan's story. Long before the marriage, another remarkable figure had played a significant role in both his personal and professional life. That woman was Joan Baez. Few artistic partnerships of the 1960s were as famous as the connection between Bob Dylan and Joan Baez. When they met, Baez was already an established star in the folk music world. She recognized Dylan's extraordinary talent early and helped introduce him to wider audiences. Together they became symbols of the folk movement. They shared stages. They performed for enormous crowds. They became linked in the public imagination as two of the era's most important musical voices. Their relationship extended beyond music. Over the years, both acknowledged a romantic connection, though the exact nature and timeline of their involvement have often been discussed differently by various sources. What is clear is that their bond was emotionally significant. Baez admired Dylan's genius. Dylan benefited enormously from her support during his rise. Yet their relationship was not without complications. As Dylan's fame exploded, tensions emerged. His artistic direction changed. His priorities evolved. Feelings of disappointment and emotional distance reportedly developed between them. Baez later spoke openly about some of the pain associated with that period. At times, she described feeling hurt by the way certain aspects of their relationship unfolded. And yet, despite those difficulties, she also continued expressing admiration for Dylan's extraordinary talent. Their story became one of music's most fascinating combinations of friendship, romance, collaboration, and unfinished emotional business. Even decades later, audiences remained captivated by their connection. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, other women entered Dylan's life as well. Some relationships were documented. Others remained the subject of speculation. Artists, performers, collaborators, and companions appeared during different phases of his journey. Each relationship reflected a different version of Dylan. The ambitious young revolutionary, the husband and father, the wounded romantic, the restless traveler, the aging artist still searching for meaning. What makes Dylan's romantic history so compelling is not simply the number of relationships involved. It is the way those relationships seem intertwined with his creative evolution. Again and again, important women appeared at pivotal moments. Suze Rotolo helped expand his intellectual and political horizons. Sara Dylan became associated with family life, emotional maturity, and some of his most personal songwriting. Joan Baez represented artistic partnership, shared ideals, and the complicated realities of fame. Each woman left fingerprints on a different chapter of his story. Each influenced the music in ways that listeners continue to analyze decades later. And each contributed to the emotional experiences that fueled one of the greatest songwriting careers in history. But as the years passed and Dylan's legend continued to grow, a fascinating question remained. Among all the women who inspired songs, shared stages, built families, and shaped his journey, which one left the deepest mark? Which memory survived the longest? Which love remained strongest in the hidden corners of a man who rarely revealed his true feelings? To answer that question, we must examine the evidence left behind in the music, the interviews, the biographies, and the memories that continue to surround one of the most private legends in modern culture. As Bob Dylan entered his later years, the world continued searching for answers hidden within his songs. For decades, listeners have analyzed every lyric, every interview, every rare personal comment, hoping to understand the man behind the mystery. Yet Dylan has always resisted simple explanations. He rarely speaks openly about past relationships. He avoids discussing personal regrets. and he has spent much of his career protecting the boundary between his public art and private emotions. That is precisely why the question remains so fascinating. Among all the women who shaped his life, was there one he could never truly forget? To explore that possibility, we must look back at the remarkable women who accompanied him through different chapters of his journey. Suze Rotolo was there at the beginning. Before stadiums, before awards, before worldwide fame. She knew Bob Dylan when he was still becoming Bob Dylan. Their relationship unfolded during the formative years when his identity, artistic vision, and worldview were still taking shape. Numerous biographers have argued that Rotolo's influence extended far beyond romance. She introduced him to literature, social activism, political ideas, and cultural movements that broadened his perspective. Perhaps most importantly, she was part of his life before celebrity transformed everything. There is something uniquely powerful about first love. Not necessarily because it lasts forever, but because it becomes woven into a person's foundation. The emotions, discoveries, and dreams associated with those early years often remain vivid long after other memories fade. Many Dylan scholars have suggested that Rotolo occupied precisely that place in his emotional history. Then there was Joan Baez. Unlike Rotolo, Baez shared Dylan's public world. Together they stood at the center of a cultural revolution. They experienced extraordinary moments few people could ever imagine. They traveled together, performed together, inspired millions together. Their relationship combined romance, friendship, artistic collaboration, and mutual influence. Yet the evidence suggests that their connection ultimately became more complex than purely romantic. What endured between them appeared to be a deep recognition of each other's importance rather than a lingering lost love narrative. Even when tensions existed, there remained respect, a shared understanding, a recognition that they had helped shape each other's lives and careers. And then there was Sara Dylan. For many observers, Sara presents the strongest case. She was not simply a girlfriend or companion. She became his wife, the mother of his children, his partner during a crucial period of adulthood, the woman associated with some of the most emotionally charged music he ever created. When discussing Dylan's deepest relationships, it is impossible to ignore the emotional weight attached to their marriage. For years they built a life together. They created a family. They shared experiences that no one else could fully understand. And when that relationship deteriorated, the emotional consequences appeared profound. The reason so many people point to Sara is not merely because of the marriage itself. It is because of what followed. Blood on the Tracks remains one of the most emotionally revealing albums ever recorded by a major artist. While Dylan consistently rejected simplistic autobiographical interpretations, listeners have long heard traces of heartbreak, reflection, longing, and unresolved emotion throughout the record. The album feels less like anger and more like contemplation. Less like resentment and more like someone attempting to understand what was lost. That distinction matters, because heartbreak often fades. But deep emotional attachment can linger for decades. So which woman left the deepest mark? Many biographers point toward Suze Rotolo because of her influence during Dylan's formative years. Others point toward Sara Dylan because of the depth of their shared life and the emotional resonance associated with their breakup. Some observers even argue that trying to choose a single woman oversimplifies the reality of human experience. Perhaps different women shaped different parts of him. Perhaps each represented a chapter that could never truly be forgotten. But if there is one theme that emerges repeatedly from Dylan's music, it is that memories rarely disappear completely. They evolve. They change shape. They become stories, songs, and fragments of emotion preserved across time. Throughout his career, Dylan often seemed more comfortable expressing feelings through music than through direct conversation. The songs became a kind of emotional archive, a place where love, loss, hope, regret, and longing could survive without explanation. Listeners searching through that archive continue finding clues. Not clear answers, not confessions, but echoes. A line here, a melody there, a feeling preserved between verses. And perhaps that is why Dylan's story continues to resonate with so many people. Because it reflects something universal. Most people eventually move on from lost relationships. Life demands it. New experiences arrive. New responsibilities emerge. Time keeps moving. Yet moving on and forgetting are not the same thing. Someone can disappear from your daily life while remaining permanently present in your memories. A photograph can trigger emotions decades later. A familiar song can transport you instantly to another era. A name can reopen an entire chapter of your past. The passage of time does not erase significance. In many ways, it clarifies it. As Dylan grew older, his songs increasingly reflected themes of memory, mortality, reflection, and the passage of years. The young revolutionary eventually became an elder statesman of music. The restless poet became a living legend. The mysterious songwriter became one of the most studied artists in history. Yet beneath all those titles remained a human being whose life, like everyone else's, was shaped by love, by connection, by loss, and by memory. For Dylan, Suze Rotolo may have represented youthful discovery and artistic awakening. Sara Dylan may have represented family, intimacy, and profound emotional transformation. Joan Baez may have represented shared purpose, artistic partnership, and a defining cultural moment. Each left a mark. Each shaped the music. Each helped create the man the world came to know. And somewhere within thousands of songs, countless performances, and decades of carefully guarded memories, traces of those relationships still remain. That may be the most moving legacy of all. Because fame fades. Records eventually stop selling. Generations change. But the people who shape our hearts never completely disappear. They live on in memory. They live on in stories. And for artists like Bob Dylan, they live on forever in the music.